Hey, welcome back, everybody. My guest today is Terri Lechton, and you heard her bio in the intro, but I got a question she doesn't know that I'm going to ask her to get the thing started. So first, let me just welcome Terri. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, busy schedule, to be on my podcast, Terri.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's my privilege to be here.
So I'm going to do something I normally don't do on my podcast, but after doing my research, I have to ask this question. Tell me something about yourself that would shock me.
Well, I think the thing that shocks most people is I will say that I've done a half marathon in Antarctica. And
Oh,
people would look at me and say, wait, I thought you had asthma. You're a little overweight. Aren't you a little too old? And when the heck did you start running? And
okay. Hold on. Wait. You ran a half marathon at the bottom of the earth, basically.
yes, you go to Ushuaia at the bottom where it says end of the world in
Yeah,
Spanish.
yeah.
And then you get on a boat for 3 days across the roughest seas in the world. And it's not a cruise ship.
Oh, okay. So, what prompted you? I mean, I get a half marathon. I mean, why didn't you just go to Cleveland or Chicago or Orlando? What what made you say, "Oh, let's go to Antarctica"? It's winter all the time there, I think.
Yeah, okay. So as a lot of my life, I had the old Southwest Airlines napkin, and I wanted to see all 50 states, and I was checking them off. Every time I got on a plane, like I'd be going, well, where could I think about going next? Maybe could I get a trip there? And when I was getting toward the end, a friend of mine said, "What's next?" And I was a real smart ass, and I said, "7 continents. What the heck?" And then I went, "Whoa, wait a minute. You can't just go to Antarctica. Like there are rules and stuff. No Holiday Inns, no Marriotts, no rental cars." So he said, "Well, wait." He says, "I have a guy that I know that went there to do a half marathon, and he fell on a glacier, broke his hip, and had to be airlifted. You should try it." Now, I thought the guy was nuts. He knew I had horrible asthma. I'm older. I'm overweight. I've never run a day of my life. And I'm going to do a half marathon in probably one of the toughest places to do it. But he said you could get 7 continents that way. And, I went out, I thought I'll start with a mile and a half, right? And I had this little mantra like, I can get from here, I can get to this continent and this one and Antarctica. The more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, maybe this is possible.
Right.
And I'll
But
tell you, most fantastic trip I ever went on.
so from the time that your friend mentioned this to you about the guy breaking his hip, being airlifted out of Antarctica, and it gets into your head, maybe I will try this. How many months did you have to train in order
Well,
to do the half marathon?
yeah, what I did was I started first. I had to do a 5K. I had to figure out how to put the timing chip on my shoe, get the thing on my front. Every little aspect. And I got past that, and then I got to finally work my way up within about 6 months to the half marathon in Columbus. Now that's pretty flat.
Yes.
And I'm at the back. I'm not saying my numbers are great, but I completed it.
Right.
You know, and then I started thinking, well, I should do a few more. So I thought, well, why not do one? I think my third one was in another cold place, Iceland. So I go to Iceland to do one. And what's funny is the race officials at the end, someone came over to me and said, "Thank you for coming. We really like you Americans who are at the back of the pack and, not doing as well and older because you give a good example to the rest of the people in our country." It was like, because they thought it was like a 20 or 25-year-old deal. And it was when I figured out I could do that, and then I had my name on a list. I was on a list for 4 years to get my spot because they're only allowed one trip in 100 people. That's it. So people are on wait lists for several years. So I was doing a lot of other smaller races and half marathons.
Right.
And then my chance came up. So I had gotten engaged. to my husband. This was a few years ago. I moved into his place the day before I left for Antarctica and threw a cat in his lap and said, I hope you guys will bond while I'm gone. And then I left for about 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh. I mean, risk taker is not the right words to use. And on your LinkedIn page, it says about adventurer. Have you always been that adventurous type of person?
Not that people would traditionally think about me being an adventurer, but I was always trying things. And my brother, who's was a year and a half younger than me, was a really crazy guy. I mean, he didn't even think like jump off the roof. He didn't think about maybe emergency room. So I was the maybe emergency room. And so I kept him a little safer, and he prodded me on to try things. So, I think starting young, and it's what I've done with my children. It's what I'm doing with my granddaughter right now. You're 2 years old, roller coaster. Start building it in early. Now, if you think there's a statistic. If you hit 10 and you haven't been on a roller coaster, it's likely you will never like amusement parks to the same degree as those who were on there very young.
That's an interesting point, because my son didn't get on a roller coaster till maybe he was 10 at the time. And it was at Coney Island, and we had the front seat. And and he was yeah, I was not the good dad at that point in his mind. But as we were coming back in, I said, Steven, you got to get that scared look off your face, dude. You got to get that, because you're going to freak people out. You can kill me later.
Yeah.
And he's only been on a roller coaster maybe two other times.
Well, we do smaller. I mean, we're talking kiddie coasters, just that, because you're really looking at if that fear factor is too big and the stretch is too much, it's not going to be a good experience. You got to do it in increments. And that's what I did with the half marathons. And, it's funny because some people have said to me, but you're at the back of the pack. A friend of mine just passed away at 83. He hit his head while running. He started running at 65. He was the one that gave me the dare. So he was running for almost 20 years. He had done over 400 full marathons. And people all over the world knew him, but he was never fast. He was never an athlete when he was young. So we put these artificial things because people also appreciate people that try hard and do what you need, do the stuff and get it done.
So I would imagine, as you work with entrepreneurs and through your teaching, you bring these stories in to demonstrate that risk is good. That
I do.
That you're going to fail, but you got to get back up and keep moving. Tell me some how you apply this Antarctica story in the classroom, or when you're coaching with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and even when I work with people in business, what I try to think about is setting that big goal that's out there. And what I try to explain to them is, I came from a poor part of Chicago. The factory was directly across the street from my house, and that was about as far as I was going to get. Maybe 8 blocks either way. And I said, here's a person from 8 blocks away, which is very similar to maybe many of my students. But if you can think and you can try, and I tell them a story about Phil Kogan, the host of Amazing Race.
Okay.
I mean, I watched it all the time, and I met him once, and he said that the average person to live their dream, it takes about 5 days and $2,000 to $3,000. And almost anybody, whatever their dream is, I mean, Antarctica would be a little more expensive, but how many people want to go to Italy? That was my husband's dream. And he's like, someday. Someday is a horrible word. So I talked to them about, we do an exercise that says, write down your fear. I do this with the entrepreneurs. Write down all the things that can go wrong, and then all the ways you can prevent it from happening. And if it does happen, then how can you fix it? But then I have them think about, what would your life be like if you never tried? And when they go through that scenario, it's amazing. They sit there thinking, wait a minute, why not? because you'll get something out of it. And then I'll tell them other people fail, but you learn so much. You don't have to be a success on every attempt.
Right.
That's where you have do-overs.
Do-over. That's right. It's, I
I
mean,
just did a do-over. Yeah.
what was your do-over?
Well, I have a shameful part of my past.
Okay.
When I was 4 years old, I had my first failure. My grandfather was cutting grass at a cemetery at 70 plus years old and decided to use the money to take me to ballet school. Now, I never asked for it.
Yeah.
But I was a ballet school dropout with a teacher screaming after my mother to never bring me back again in 4 weeks.
Wow.
So I was kicked out in 4 weeks.
Wow.
And I was not a bad kid. But in my adult life, I can remember the floor. I can remember my outfit. I can remember the bar. I can't remember any dancing. So that might have been the problem. So I signed up recently to take a class through Columbus State at the community college to take a ballet class. I just didn't realize it was at the professional, Ballet Met Ballet Academy, and that everyone in my class would be 18 to 20 years old. And I was very thankful because they said, "Oh, you're old. You're like 38, 40." And I'm like, "Yes, we'll go with that number." And I could do about 80% of what they did. I did some modifications, but it showed me that, mindset, and you can, and I was just so thrilled. I now have like a ballet subscription. I can get into classes, remotely and do it. And it's sort of fun.
Well, that's cool. And I think about entrepreneurs, and you have to have a strong will and a strong stomach to deal with a lot of what entrepreneurs deal with day in and day out. And that I can see that I can see the bridge between Antarctica, the ballet, the things that you have done, and bringing it into the classroom to make people realize we're our biggest limit.
Yeah.
And I'm being very transparent here. There's one thing I've always wanted to do that I haven't done, and that's skydive.
Hmm.
And I imagine you've already skydived.
No, well, I did indoor skydiving.
Okay.
Okay. Because I really have this fear of skydiving, although I did work construction where I was, up on scaffolding, like 10, 15 stories up and doing that kind of stuff. But one of my former Girl Scouts skydives all the time. Her husband is one of these elite skydivers, and she invited me a year ago. She said, "We're going to Egypt. Would you like to skydive over the pyramids with us?" I thought about it. So if you want to be hooked up, I can give the name, and you could go, figure out one of the places these people go, and they get you with some skydivers.
I've done a lot in my days, and I've done a lot. I'm pushing myself, and I had this conversation with a colleague the other day, and I didn't realize that she goes, "Oh, I'm trying to get certified in skydiving. You need to do it. Why do you want to do it?" I said, "Well, I've never done it. I've always wanted to do it. I need to get past that." And I said, selfishly, too, I want the video. I want the video of me hurling down to the ground from this airplane, probably screaming like a 13-year-old boy. But how many people have never wanted to skydive?
Yeah.
And never
I did
have.
indoor. I did indoor skydiving because I wanted to try it, and I was able to go up in the tube, and I did some air some stuff with the instructor, and I thought it was wonderful. It's wonderful for one time. I didn't, I think we, try stuff because not everything is going to be, great. I mean, my biggest hesitation with skydiving is I wondered if I would have so much fear that I would pass out on the way down and then wake up when I got to the bottom. And I thought it was a lot of money to pay for sleep. So
you have a point.
so I did now I've done zip lining. I mean, I took my 70-year-old sister-in-law who has never done anything wild. She told me for her 70th birthday, she wanted to do a big obstacle course up near Cleveland. And I'm get there. I'm like, okay. She's like, "Well, you'll get me through this, right?" Like, okay.
So I got a challenge for you.
Yeah.
And it goes along the same lines with, okay, so the part that I may not have put in the intro is that you're also a member of the National Speakers Association,
Mm-hmm.
and well, and a number of Lisa Ryan, for one, is the first one that comes to mind, is up in Cleveland at the Improv. They have stand-up classes, and then you
Mm-hmm.
take these classes and do it in front of a live audience. And
Yep.
she said she did it once, not going to do it again, but it was something she tried. But have you ever done stand-up comedy?
I've done both improv. My daughter forced me to do it, and then she started really egging me on. So she picks this day, and I invite some people from Toastmasters. She said, "No problem. I'll get you on the stage too." So there's like three of us. So okay, we're gonna get on the stage. My flight got canceled from Hawaii on the way back. I'm flying like all night, no sleep, and I'm rewriting my thing. And then I realized that it's a little better group than normal. And they put the good people on and then us. So I'm
Oh,
I'm the first person after the good people. And I thought, oh, this is gonna be bad. So I think I was purely on adrenaline, and I told a story about the horrible road to Hana,
mhm.
and some stories about that. It actually turned out pretty well.
Oh, good.
So
Well,
I've gone a few times. It's I've done, I use improv when I teach, even because I'm, you know, teaching or workshops or
right,
training.
right.
It's like you're constantly improvising. You're working off of what other people are saying,
Mhm.
acting things out.
Absolutely. I mean, now you're speaking my language, because I just want for the audience, there's a difference between stand-up comedy and improv. Stand-up
Mhm,
comedy, there's a formula. There's
mhm,
setup, punchline, tag, boom, and it's all based off of shorter the better, shorter the better.
mhm.
10, 15 jokes within a 5-minute period. Improv, you're not working with the script.
Right.
You're working with instincts, you're working with your knowledge, your life journey, you're listening really hard to what people are saying, and then you're adding on to it. And actually, Kristen Wiig from the SNL days and Bridesmaids said,
Mhm,
improv is not about being funny, it's about listening.
mhm.
And that's the whole key, the big difference between the two. And I was doing stand-up at one time, and I took improv, and after the second class I fell in love. I've done some stand up in the past, but I still love the improv because I think it does more for as a presenter than stand up does.
Yeah, my daughter's done quite a bit of improv, so I've got to see her performing and then also stand up. So I think she just wanted to goad me a little bit, like, come on, mom, get up here.
Come on, mom. Um, so my next question is, with all these adventurous things that you have done, uh, what haven't you done that's next on your list to do?
Well, my husband was very envious of the fact I got to play with the 10,000 penguins in Antarctica and all the stuff with that. So I told him what I really like to do is go to South Africa, because there's another huge group of penguins there and he can see it. And I'd love to drive through South Africa. That would make my seventh continent. I would have hit the last one.
Okay, wait. You played with the penguins in Antarctica. So
Yeah.
that was on your off day or something that you get to play with
Well,
all
we
these
were there
things.
about 2 weeks. So,
Okay.
they take you, you get off the boat, it's a little weird. This is not like a cruise. You're coming down a ladder, you're jumping into a zodiac. The waves are coming over your head as you go to land, and you think you're going to land somewhere. Well, they get you close and they throw you out, and you're in knee deep water and you trudge ashore. And every day we were, with a lot of wildlife. I mean, I got during
Hmm.
the race, I got attacked by a skua bird who, coming in to rip the top of your head off. I mean, just normal kind of. And we saw the researchers, interacted with them a little.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was truly, I mean, it's the quietest place I've ever been, the more spiritual. And on our boat of 100 people, we have people from all over the world. And, people would flip, Americans don't know many languages, but all over the world, people know a lot of languages. So you see people
Right.
just flipping in and out of languages. And it was really sort of fun to get to
Wow.
know people because we had no entertainment. We had to go get to know people. That was our entertainment.
And you were literally off the grid for more than 3 weeks.
Yes, we had a satellite phone we could use
Yeah.
that was iffy from the boat. It's a research vessel to wherever.
So there's penguins in South Africa. That's the last continent. So you can't out of the 6 out of the 7 continents, which has been your favorite?
I'm always asked, like, what's my favorite state? And what I run into is I love things about each one. I mean, my time on the Great Wall, we were in a very remote part of it. We were doing hiking. I mean, that was great. And then I think about the outback of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were in the cities, but we went, we never typically don't go on a tour unless, you have to.
Right.
But, and even then, I think I run away a lot. But in Australia, we were totally on our own. And my poor husband, he said, we met through a matchmaker. He had hired a matchmaker,
Mm-hmm.
just happened to know me. And he told her he wanted someone that was active. And I think he thinks I've almost killed him. But he keeps up with me. So, I mean, he said he traveled more in the few years he's been with me than he's traveled in his whole life. But for our wedding, he had the dream to go find the village of his grandfather. And so I took Italian. We did research and went and found the village and stayed in the village. And, it was a really great experience for him.
That's cool. So you do a lot of teaching. Actually, we both have taught at similar institutions, like at Franklin, at University of Maryland. It's not called the Global Campus.
Yeah.
And these courses that can you give me a sampling of some of the courses that you teach?
Yeah, at Columbus State, I've been teaching mostly business management, leadership, entrepreneurship. I teach a number of the entrepreneurship classes as need arises. And in Maryland, I taught strategy and moving into international locations in the MBA program. And now I'm actually teaching a class I think I like even better. It's the first class, because that's where students are trying to decide, is this really for me?
The first class, what do you mean the first class?
The first class is a combination of learning, how to set up a paper, how to think about things, how to build the toolkit of skills that are needed for the rest of the MBA program.
Okay.
But I have so many students coming in that have been out of school for a long time, they're juggling a lot of things. They're all over the world because they have many military, even non-military. And I mean, it's very interesting, but I look at that as a place to make a difference in a different way. Because I went to school and worked full time through my entire education. And that's what many of my students are doing. And they're saying, how do I juggle it with a child?
Hey. Yeah.
I had mine at the table doing homework through my doctorate.
So that's interesting. That very first class in the MBA program, but with your leadership, your entrepreneurship, I mean, I can imagine. Yeah, they got to read stuff, but you must really wow them with the variety of stories that you have that can relate to that brings that emotional content into your teaching that they're probably hanging on every word. You probably get some of the highest evaluations at all these institutions that you teach.
It depends, but yes, I do pretty well. I try to use a lot of stories because I think stories can convey ideas.
Absolutely. And the more that we can story tell as well as deliver the content that what's the word I'm looking for? That high content, big data, statistics and stuff, theory, but tie it into a story, the retention level increases dramatically in the students.
Yeah. And you know, if I'm working one-on-one with them, a lot of times I'll kid them, I'll tell them something about didn't work with me, and that really helps to build the relationship. And it's funny because they'll know that my background is business, but then at some point they'll say, but I'm just an engineer. And I go, oh, but so am I. You're a nerd? Yeah. I competed in math and yeah, grammar school, high school, I was a mathlete.
You don't fit the nerd profile. And I don't know what that profile is, but this, yeah, I think of, if I'm an accountant and I live in the land of accounting, and not as much as it used to be, the accounting nerds, but you know, they're risk avoidant.
Oh yeah.
Most
Yeah. I
people
mean,
who are
there's a whole stereotype of an accountant just as there is with an engineer.
right, as well as an architect, as well as, you know,
Mhm.
these high content, very technical, and the taking on risk is something that most in general do not ever want to do. And
Right.
I think it brings light to the fact that, yeah, I'm like you, but I'm looking at the world through different lens. And as a student slash entrepreneur slash leader, you have to have these different lenses in order to motivate and inspire
Yeah.
the customers, your clients, your people that work with you to get to that next level.
And what I found during my career was when I tried to follow the rules too much, it I think I was mediocre. I mean, I was a good enough engineer. But when I decided I wanted to break the rules, then that was where everything changed. Because at that point I could say, why are we doing things the way we're doing? Let me show you this, and this. And then very shortly in my career, I became a person that was brought into an area to create change and massive change. And then I was in my element because
Yeah,
I could talk the tech and I could do this other creative stuff.
absolutely. And that's, I love it when I'm in front of, you know, my technical audience, primarily CPAs, finance, and accounting folks. And I can speak the language. I know how they've lived. I know, but I come at from a completely different perspective. And they come up to me and go, you really were a CPA? You still have
Yeah.
your license? Yes, I do. You're not like us. And thank you.
And that's what I see in you that's so great because I think there's that similarity. You know, people that do that, there are people out there, and that's really neat.
Yeah, I I don't, you're putting me, when I first started in accounting, a square peg in a round hole, because I didn't come out of that background. I came out Greek American, want to be in a restaurant, very gregarious. And, but I tried to put myself, be like everybody else with the white shirt, the blue sport coat,
Mhm.
weekends, come in khakis. And I just, I was trying to follow the rules and I was not even mediocre. It just wasn't me, just as you just said, and
Yeah,
the ability
that,
to shake
that's
things up.
funny. That's funny, the clothing, because that's what I remember. Hey, you're supposed to wear this drab clothing, a suit. And for women, it was a skirt at the time. And I
Right.
figured out I couldn't keep up with any of the men. So I went to pants and a slack because, because I was out in sometimes plant. And then started wearing red jackets and bright green. Yeah, I
I
was being a little rebellious.
I showed up in a black suit one day. Somebody asked me, "Are you going to a funeral?" I went, "No." They go, "What are you wearing a black suit for? You're supposed to be in a blue suit with white shirt." I said, It's the new fashion." And I was like, "You, yeah." But
Yeah.
I learned that I like being different,
Mm-hmm.
and for those students and entrepreneurs, it's good to be different.
Well, you have to train people to be different. This morning, I also teach for Goldman Sachs. That's where I do some of the leadership and visioning. And I was watching the group down in Cincinnati who were we've been working with them for months doing their expansion plans on their business. And really articulating and looking at how they're going to lead it and change it, even though most of the time they've been operating in COVID right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really, it's interesting because when I work with them on the visioning, it was always like, push it more, think bigger, because often they were just looking at one little step ahead. And I could see it in their final plans. It was really, really nice to see the kinds of ideas that they ended up with after weeks and weeks of, working together with a variety of instructors.
I think that in that environment, in that, how willing is the organization to accept taking large, bold steps
Mm-hmm.
and coming up with those big, bold ideas, or has the culture so much that I'm afraid to take these bold steps because they can be punitive
Mm-hmm.
at times.
And one of the things is that you also have to gear yourself for being able to be that creative. So I found that I would always be recommending to people to do a workshop, read something that's outside your area, because it's amazing how many people get their most creative ideas from something else that's not that.
Absolutely. You see that guitar over there?
I do.
I can't play it.
Oh,
I've never been able to. However, there are times that I get stuck in my creative process. I read somewhere, play a guitar even if you can't play, and I just start strumming it. I just start strumming it, and then the sounds and stuff trigger something in my brain. Oh, thank you, and I put it back.
that's a neat trick. I like that.
Yeah, it works. Or the other thing was listen to music and see if you can identify all the instruments that are being used. That helps in that creativity process.
Yeah, I do something different because I studied a lot of music as a kid. I competed in music. I made money with music. I was a little entrepreneur back then, playing weddings and things. But I would probably be the nerd sitting there making sure I caught all the instruments. I love to watch artistic pictures because I can't paint. I have tried it. There is no way that I think I'll ever get anything out. But I like to look at the creative color stuff because that is something I can't do as well.
Right. But you're attempting it, but you're also working that, those who are highly technical tend to live in that left hemisphere of the brain. The
Mm-hmm.
logical can't get off that straight line. The more that you play in the right side, which is the bigger picture, um, you you are helping those creative juices. And I don't know if I can still do this now, but somebody uh, told me
Yeah.
take your left hand and put a thumbs up and the right point at it, then go switch it, switch it, switch it, switch it, switch it,
Uh-oh.
switch it, switch it, switch it, switch
I'm
it.
having trouble there.
And so I was having trouble. It took me a while till I could finally do it, and I haven't done that in a couple months. But someone said that little exercise
Mm-hmm.
will help get both hemispheres fired up,
Oh,
especially the
that's
right,
interesting.
especially the right hemisphere.
Yeah.
But be careful, you can poke an eye out. Good thing you got glasses on
Well,
when
I'll
you
keep the
first.
glasses on. That'll protect me.
So as we begin to wrap up, you've Antarctica, penguins, half marathon, skydived, stand up. Hit me with another one of your daring feats.
Oh my gosh. Daring, a daring feat. Well, I'll tell you right now, people have thought that I have been very daring because during COVID, they keep asking me, what are you doing during COVID? And I have been, and this is something I have talked to people about is like anybody can stretch themselves in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that since I still had that seventh continent, I wanted to feel like I visited it this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided Morocco. I was going to spend 2 weeks in Morocco.
Okay.
So every day I found YouTube videos where I could be walking through all these areas of Morocco, riding camels. Then I had to take my granddaughter to see the camels at the zoo, but she didn't want to ride them. But she said next time. So again, starting early.
Mhm.
But we were making Moroccan food. We had Moroccan music. I had Moroccan and learning about the country and just doing all these things. And, that's where I sometimes feel like people think you have to do that huge thing, but I'll tell you, that was very satisfying. And there is a statistic that goes with it. And I think about my trip to Australia, which was great, but it's great in memory. There was a lot of things that didn't go well, like blowing up a car. But things happen. Um, they say that when you take a trip, when you're in the midst of the trip, it's like a 6 out of 10 because you really have all the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Mhm.
When you remember it, it's a 10 out of 10. And the great part about it is anything you experience, you can evoke that back and feel it again. But if you plan the trip and never go, you get an 8 out of 10.
Okay, okay, say that. So if you, so
Yeah, you go and you plan the trip and you look at all the places and you watch
okay,
videos and you do the whole itinerary and you go and get some food and then you don't go at all.
yeah.
You get an 8 out of 10 as far as satisfaction and happiness.
I wish we had this conversation over a year ago because my wife and I were supposed to go to Australia in November of last year.
Okay.
Clearly, we didn't go, but it was a surprise. You planned it all, but if I'd have known now what I know then, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
we would have spent more time planning it and to go, well, this is where we're going to go, this is what we're going to be doing, and see if that's. But by anybody you remember 8 out of 10, that's interesting.
So I mean, we planned the trip, but then we went and did the stuff, and the stuff is always a mix. It's like you're going up this incline and it's very hot,
Yeah.
and you're just about passing out. But yes, it's beautiful, but that's that extra 2 points, I guess, that you can get.
Well, we went to Italy and we went to Capri, and I still remember taking this. We walked to the center, so it was like a mile up, and then we took it to the top, and we took this bus, and it was a beautiful day. And at one point, we couldn't see the guardrails, and everybody in the bus went, we thought we were going over the edge. Um, I still feel that, and it's been 12 years.
Yeah, that's the part you're not supposed to think about.
But yeah, but everybody just kind of freeze up, and I mean, ugh,
Oh,
uh,
that sounds pretty hairy. Yeah.
yeah, and we get to the top, we were looking for a place to have a cocktail, to kind of calm my nerves. But see, I would have never thought that. Oh, there's a lot of places I want to go. I should try that.
I put walking through the streets of Paris on. I've been there a long time ago. I put on a video walking through the streets, put it on when I'm on the treadmill, and it brings back a lot of the memories, and I learn about new places that are there. Sort of fun. Not as good, but
Right. So, well, and on a similar note, because it's that whole visualization that you're going through. And I remember some years ago that I had to write and deliver a brand new keynote address. And I've never seen the facility, but basically what they described, I keep
hmm
thinking of two large screens, podium, blah, blah, blah. And in preparation for that, I visualized me delivering this keynote, and I visualized myself falling off the stage, hitting the podium, doing all the things that I was mispronouncing words. But I went through like a 2-week process of just visually
hmm
being there. And when I got there, oh my God, I mean, I did have nerves, but nothing to any degree. And I wasn't using PowerPoint or anything like that. So this was like an hour off, from somewhat of memory. And I try to do that as much as possible. Is if I can get an idea where I'm going to be and live in that for a while. So when I do get there, it's kind of the same thing that you're just saying.
hmm
Then I'm much more comfortable.
Yeah, and
And
I've done that with big speeches too, where I really have to almost sit and visualize because I'm just how is this going to work,
Mhm.
and walk through it. I tend to be trying to get the positive because my brain's already doing all that negative, like
Yeah,
I'm going to fall, yeah.
right. And I put that in there just for me to know that that's not going to happen. And if it does, I won't be too shocked about it. Because I'm not a podium, I'm not somebody who stand behind a podium
Yeah.
and speak. So I'm always walking, but I do have a good idea, but I can see myself falling off the back or something at some point in time because I'm not paying as close attention as I should or falling off the front.
Yeah, it's the good thing is though, you have a comedy background. I'm sure you can come up with a good line to fit that into whatever is happening, right?
Right. Yeah. Something would pop into my head and I'm drawing a blank right now what something I could say, but yeah, something would pop into my head and hopefully I'd make the audience laugh.
But we all stumble with our numbers, right?
Right. Yeah. We all, yeah. 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 I just fill out those things because that's the way I view numbers. I just stumble all the time
Yeah.
with them. Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. Well, Terry, thank you so very much. We've just gotten to know each other over the last year or so, and you just blow me away. I mean, you're an inspiration for anybody who is risk adverse as to what taking risks in your life and in your business. How, yes, there are some failures, but there's more to gain than to be lost.
There is. And doing it small increments sometimes. But think of where you want to end up, whether it's personal or business. And I've so much enjoyed working with you, Peter. I'm looking forward as I'm in NSA longer to tap your brain for more tips and ideas because I'm just starting out and trying to put all my things together.
Well, you know how to find me. Anytime I can help you, please do not hesitate to contact me at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.